Good morning and welcome to Professional Study Day 2021 for middle school and secondary theater educators. This is Erin Saladino. I'm the Art and Theater Education Supervisor, and I am super excited to be able to share our Professional Study Day together here at Jefferson High School. Obviously our Professional Study Day is going to look a little bit different than it probably has in the past. There's going to be opportunities for you all to kind of collaborate with each other, but also to experience a lot of the online resources that we have, and just a little bit about the advocacy efforts and the reorganization of curriculum that has been done on your behalf. So let's go ahead and look at what our objectives are for the day. So we're going to look really quick at our agenda for the day, some systems of support, so some people and some institutions that are here that can support us, some resources in our curriculum, and a little bit about what our assessments are going to look like this year. Advocacy requests, importance of advocacy, and just different ways that we're going to be communicating throughout the year for important information. So a whole lot of new stuff. So today's agenda, you guys are right now listening to a pre-recorded general session only because not only am I working with you guys, but I'm also working with K-12 art. So I have 14 different art hubs throughout the district for elementary, and then our middle school and high school art peeps are kind of across the hallway over at Jefferson. So I'm doing a lot of pre-recorded stuff, but I will definitely be stopping by for the Q&A with the supervisor from 11 to 12 and popping in throughout the day. So you are listening right now to the general session, and then after that, you're going to be given the opportunity to kind of explore our resources that have been built in Canvas. We're going to collaborate together and work on a theater walkthrough forum, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to be able to stop in and answer questions and clarify any things during that Q&A with the supervisor and get a chance to meet everybody. You'll have lunch on your own from 12 to 1, so you can either bring your lunch like it's been suggested, or you may certainly venture out somewhere close as long as you are back by 1 o'clock. You're going to have time with peer connections. We have some colleagues that have offered to kind of step up to the plate and share some of their expertise, but also open it up for just general conversation of how other people have kind of worked with some of these highlighted ideas. And then we're going to plan ahead for the year. So you're going to use that curriculum that's in Canvas to kind of identify curriculum needs based on those curriculum maps and kind of map out your year so you're ready to go. And then at the end, we're going to do a quick concluding survey just to provide any other last minute questions and information in a needs assessment. So really quick, accountability for your workday. Like I said, this Professional Study Day is going to look very different than what you guys have probably done in the past. There's a couple of different ways that your accountability for your workday is going to be kind of archived and shared with your site administrators because it is a workday. But also supervisors have been asked to do this just because everybody's kind of all over the place with some people working, having remote aspects of their Professional Study Day and whatever. And we just want to make sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be. So please make sure that if you have not already done so, that you have registered for Professional Study Day in our PDS system. Our PDS system in Staff Hub is gorgeous, especially in comparison to what it used to look like. And if you have not done that already, please make sure you do so. Instructions are in the general information button of our Canvas course, which is kind of right where you found this link for this general session. And you're going to want to go in there and register yourself. And I should make sure to get those points for you kind of wrapped up by the end of next week. I like to get that done quick. You need to make sure that you are signing in the sign-in sheet that you should have already done by this morning. In the Media Center Jefferson, and then once you get back from lunch, please make sure you sign in as well. Canvas Analytics. So just like maybe you have used with your students last year when we had e-learners, that Canvas kind of shows when people log in and when they log out. And because there's going to be a ton of time today for you to kind of navigate our curriculum maps and our curriculum information resources that we do have in Canvas, your Canvas time is going to be noted as part of your participation for today. And there's also going to be some opportunities for feedback and responses through surveys. And these surveys are usually really just 1 or 2 questions to ask for a response of maybe the task or activity that we're doing. But those are going to be other ways to kind of show your participation. So just to kind of wrap up this slide, there's a ton of information that's going to be shared throughout the day. And just like you have with your students, participation is an expectation. Systems of support, opportunities for you to grow and to stay in the know. So these are just kind of people that are here to support you. And I also want to talk about one of our community representatives. So the district level support, you have myself as the art and theater supervisor. And while there's, different kind of levels of support, so you have your site administrators, you have your department heads, but then also you have, your supervisor at the district level. And so these are just kind of some things that I can, provide for you. So remember, it's really important that you kind of advocate for yourself first. If there's an issue that's happening on campus, talk to your administration, talk to your department head. But then also, these are things I can help you with. So curriculum support, curriculum maps and course review materials, any kind of textbooks as we go through, textbook adoptions. I know those kind of got started at one point and then kind of drifted off. But things like that, those are definitely what I'm here for. Canvas resource course upkeep. So as things, anybody wants to start contributing things to Canvas, or the district has information that needs to be shared, on a broader level through Canvas. And as I continue to build, Canvas will be kind of, taken care of by myself, and anybody that wants to contribute resources. Provide opportunities for professional development based off present resources, and we'll talk about professional development in a little bit. Equipment and material support, like I said, things like textbooks, ordering information. I will talk a little bit about some of the things that I have on a wish list, and that includes equipment repair. So if anything has to do with equipment repair, if I get the budget that I asked for, those would be things that I would handle. Communication of student and educator opportunities. So things like if there's opportunities out there for your students to audition, or if there's a community rep that kind of reaches out to me, those are definitely things that I would share with you. Liaison support at the site level for theater programs. And this is where I'd like to say that, make sure that you know your rights, that you know your teacher contract, you know what is considered best practices, just in general for the district. And then that's where you first kind of go through that chain of command of advocating for yourself, whether it's, your accounting with your budget, or scheduling, or, just that this is just not the best practices and the right thing to do. You do want to make sure that you kind of reach out to your administration first, because nobody likes surprises. And we certainly don't want administrators being surprised that you come straight to me and then I reach out to them, as opposed to you kind of, coming to them first. But if we can't get that resolved with you kind of approaching them and going through that chain of command, I'm definitely here. And then also district representation of theater programs amongst all major stakeholders. So I am the supervisor is considered kind of like that voice of advocacy, making sure that when we're having district-wide meetings, or if anybody is making policy, that a supervisor is the one that goes, well, hey, what about theater? That has happened in the past, and then there have been other opportunities where it hasn't, and that's something that is taken very seriously. So it is a voice of advocacy for you all as well. Kylie Hingle is our brand new district resource teacher. In the past, I did, for a very, very short time, have one district resource teacher that helped me with art when I was just having art. And she retired, and then there was this big gap in time where the district really wasn't hiring anybody. And then over the summer, we advertised for a position, and part of advertising for this position was that this person stepping in, because of majority of the workload would be art, that they would have to have art education experience, but I also wanted to make sure that they did have theater experience. And Miss Hingle was an elementary art teacher and then moved to high school, but also does have a ton of theater knowledge. So she's somebody that is definitely the best person for this position, and that because, like I said, the majority of the workload is art, but also that we do have theater, that she has that knowledge. And some things that she can assist you with are assisting or facilitating or guiding new and struggling educators. So if there are things that are best practices, or you're struggling with classroom management or organizing pacing guides or curriculum information, please definitely tap into her. She can provide best practices insights as needed. Either she or myself can definitely come out and kind of sit and provide non-evaluative feedback. If you know that you're going to have an observation and you want help with that pre-observation form that nobody should ever waive, and you should always do that, and always do your pre-observation conference, we can definitely be there for that as well. Those are definitely the times that you need to advocate for yourself and put as much information in those forms as possible. So she can help with that. Analyze educator needs assessments for PD opportunities. She is going to be one that will comb through all of the data that you guys are providing through the different surveys that we do today. Those surveys that I'll talk about in a little bit are not just to gather information or to have you jump through a hoop, but that information considers needs assessments, what it is that you need, what is missing that we have in Canvas, that as you explore through Canvas. What are things that you can bring to the table, or specifically, is there something at your school that is a struggle or a challenge? So again, those surveys are not things just to kind of check off that you're doing something for the day, but they are ways to get information from you so we can help you. And then assist in communication of student and educator opportunities. So if I am not sharing that information, it is definitely coming from Kylie, from community members, or just district opportunities. HCPS Arts in Education programs. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Carol Vick. Our Arts in Education program has been with the district for a very, very long time, and it was housed for most of the time within the Arts Council. And then with the past couple of years, we kind of brought it back in-house, and Carol Vick, who was at the Arts Council, moved over here with us, and she is a wonderful asset to our district, especially when it comes to the visual and performing arts. She asks for a budget every year, and the district provides her a budget that she can use to kind of spread the wealth among schools that are interested for things like visiting artists, field trips, cultural opportunities. So I have actually put the link to her catalog, to the Arts and Education Programs catalog, underneath this general session link on the Canvas page. Please consider clicking and looking and sharing with your administration some of the things that you like and that you may want to have come out to your school, and then reach out to Ms. Vick. Her contact information is within her catalog, and these are free because her budget covers it, and she's always wanting to find schools that are interested in these kind of community experiences. So please take advantage of that. Sometimes she tries reaching out to schools, and because administrators are really busy, or she's trying to reach out to teachers and your inboxes are really full, that communication kind of gets lost. So I'm trying to kind of get ahead of the parade here, and share her information with you so you can peruse her catalog and see if there's anything that's interesting to you, and reach out to her and make a connection, and she will make it happen. Hillsborough Education Foundation. The first thing that I want to say is HEF has a very sweet spot for visual and performing arts programs. And for anybody that is not aware, Hillsborough Education Foundation they make one of their biggest priorities to make sure that teachers and their programs get the funding that they need to make sure that they are the most successful. And so, aside from the free teacher store, if anybody has not taken advantage of that free teacher store, please make it part of being in your comfort zone of kind of driving out there, and there's plenty of parking. They have their own parking lot, so you don't have to worry about parking on the street or anything. But if you go in there and you're a Title I school, you get one free shopping trip a month. And there's just kind of like a slew of random things. It could be notebooks or journals or, color pencils, sets. And, one item is, 10 colored pencil sets, and you get a total of 10 items. But you never really know what's there because a lot of that is also donation based. So it doesn't necessarily need to be just for art teachers or for classroom teachers, but it's a treasure hunt. For anybody that's not in a Title I school, If you volunteer 3 hours to kind of help them run the little shop, you know, you may be filling bins or kind of organizing things or whatever, it's definitely no brainer and no sweat. And then after that, you also get a free shopping trip. They provide college scholarships and mini grants, and they also do help Carol Vick with their arts and education programs. But they provide tons of support, and like I said, they have a pretty good sweet spot for our visual and performing arts programs. So I strongly suggest that you kind of, you know, check out the Hillsborough Education Foundation website. Okay, so let's really quick talk about PD opportunities. And I know that everybody's probably also asking, like, what can I get for, you know, the points that I need for the things that I do outside of the school? So I'm going to kind of go through each one of these chunks. And I did this with my art peeps as well. And the first one is, you know, a lot of feedback that we get, and we usually get, you know, feedback or inquiries about this in like, I don't know, April or May, because usually everybody is kind of scrambling at the last minute to renew their certificates by June 30th. So they're trying to find those last minute in-service points. And one of the questions is like, well, we really don't have any theater PD for the district, you know, within PDS. And that is very true. And here's a couple of reasons how, you know, content specific professional development can be offered within the district. It is dependent on whether we have funding available to pay experts to come in and to present. And that is something that, you know, we're given the option at the beginning of the fall semester and the beginning of the spring semester to request funds. So there's kind of like a little bit of timing involved. So unless we have our ducks in a row, the very beginning of a semester, it's kind of hard to kind of gather funding from the district to pay for experts to come in. The other one is if we have experts or community members that want to donate their time and expertise. So instead of getting paid, they just kind of volunteer to come in and do it for free. And then I'm going to go to that third bullet point, and then I'm going to kind of say something else. But those teachers, like if there are any teachers that want to present training suggestions within this content area, or if they have a need and they are willing to present their expertise. We have some teachers that want to volunteer their expertise and, you know, do a 3-hour training. But the one thing that I want to say is I personally do not expect any teacher or even any expert or community member to do any of their sharing of knowledge for free. Your knowledge and your time is very valuable. And the only way that I would even consider approaching anyone to volunteer their time, especially to kind of contribute to their colleagues, and your colleagues' time is important as well, is if we did have funding. So, you know, one of the questions in one of these surveys today is, you know, what kind of expertise do you have? Is there anything that you want to share? Please, if you are interested in, you know, throwing out some ideas for doing some trainings, now is the time to do it, because I do need to turn in my budget request for the fall. So, you know, if you're interested in that, you know, you can fill it out in the survey, or you can even email me personally and we can talk about that and see what that looks like and if that would be a good fit. The last bullet point in if there's any theater PD offered is if the supervisor, which is me, creates, offers, presents the training based on what your district needs are. Okay, and so that's another reason why you have those surveys, is that you're sharing kind of what those needs are. Do you have issues with classroom management? Do you have a need for, you know, organization of boosters? Do you need, you know, what do you need? So please share that information with me and we'll see where we can go with that. The other option that you have for kind of gathering in service points, which kind of seems to be the more popular offer with our visual and performing arts teachers, because we're more creative and we think more outside the box, and we see what's out there in the community, is out of district PD offerings. So things like college courses, community centers, workshops, trainings that you do, whether they're online, whether they're in the community. And if you are experiencing any of those opportunities, a couple of things that you want to take into consideration. First, you will need to make sure that that experience is a minimum of 3 hours worth, and it has to be 3 hours worth of learning time, okay, or workshop time. So things that would not count towards those 3 hours are networking, registration, any kind of meals like breakfast or lunch, sign-in time. So you just want to make sure that, if you're going to, if you're going to take the experience just for the sake of taking it, then take it. But if you are taking it solely to bank in service points, please remember that that's one of the stipulations. And it's not a stipulation of mine or the district's. It's actually a stipulation of the state certification office. The second one is you must complete a request for in-service points form. And I have that form readily available. And it should be in the PD and I think it's like the PD button that you have in our Canvas course, but it is in there. And it also has all this information in more detail. So you'll need to complete that. And then you're going to have sign it and includes a couple more artifacts and actually give it to your administrator. The artifacts that you have to include in order to show those 3 hours of time and that it was a legit experience, you must include proof of registration. So that could be an email that shows that you paid, or an email, like a confirmation email with registration, and an agenda that is itemizing time. So this is where they're going to add up those to make sure that it's at least 3 hours of experience. So they'll cross out any time that was login or registration time, or transition from one part of a campus to another or whatever. When you're going to be taking, there's kind of like a calculator that they use if you're taking a college course. So that's something to take into consideration. But then also, if you're taking like an online course and it's 20 hours, they will probably not give you 20 hours worth of in-service points. They may consider giving you maybe, I don't know, like 6 or 7, which is better than nothing. But just take those things into consideration if you're gonna, shell out a registration fee for something and you're doing it strictly for in-service points. Before I get down to the bottom, so what about thespians? Let's talk about outside the box district offered PD. When we don't have in-district PD that is theater specific, think outside the box and look for some of those other content area trainings that are not restricted simply to their peeps, but classroom management, behavior strategies, teaching with poverty in mind, tough kid toolbox, higher order thinking. So there's a lot of other opportunities that, you may just kind of need to think outside the box and make that extra connection. And we're kind of used to that because we're creative people. So what about thespians? That's been one of the big questions because you guys, a lot of you spent a ton of time, contributing to thespians as either officers or just as, not just as educators, but as educators and directors. And so when it comes to thespians, remember that the rules are based on from the state certification office, because they are the ones that kind of distribute the in-service points for that 120 that you need for your certificate. So remember that the rules for the artifacts that I mentioned in that middle box still stand for thespians. The best that I can suggest is that you kind of get all your ducks in a row and you provide what you feel is legit artifacts, and then have your administrator sign it and send it to our district PD department, and then they will make the final decision based on kind of like extra detailed rules that they have from the state. But do keep in mind that it has to be something where you are receiving the learning and not that you are giving the learning or you are giving direction of any kind. Okay, so when I reached out to our PD department, that was the guidance that they gave me, that the teacher is learning something new as opposed to the teacher giving something to somebody else, right? Wish list. So I want to start out by saying that one of the reasons why I kind of stepped up to the plate and offered to help be an advocate for you all starting in January of last year is because while I feel that the supervisors that were kind of, that were helping you all in previous years within the district were also ones that kind of had a lot on their plate. And when you are kind of the cranberry salad or the cranberry dressing on that huge Thanksgiving plate, plate full of everything else in the world, sometimes, everybody's bellies get full before they get to the cranberry dressing. So I wanted to kind of, see if, because I have a passion for theater and I have a lot of personal professional experience with it, in part of bringing you, onto my plate, which was a little bit more balanced, was because I wanted to make sure that you all had a voice when it came to things like being considered for budgets. So, when it was time for us to kind of ask for things for our budgets, there were two different budgets that we were being asked to consider our content areas for. So I did my normal art budget for my art peeps, but then I was trying to think based on some of the needs assessments for a couple of the teachers that were able to fill out my survey in January. These are kind of some things that I asked for. So these are things that I asked for with my general funds, and that was I'm missing my E at the end of troop. Thespian and troop registration fees. So I'm asking to make sure that all thespian troops that are going to be competing this year, that I pay for those registration fees. Thespian Festival substitute coverage. I would pay to make sure that each teacher that was going to a competition, that their substitute coverage was paid for. And as much as that was kind of an expectation in the past, within the past year, not so much. And so I didn't want that to disappear. So I wanted to make sure that that was definitely a bullet point on my general funds. Teacher annual subscription to Drama Teacher Academy. And this is partly, even if it was a 1-year subscription for each theater educator, was to hopefully kind of, provide a PD experience, but also kind of build capacity with resources. Right now, we really just don't have a ton of accumulated resources for theater. And so by doing that, hopefully we could have, guided opportunities to where we all kind of dig in, see what's there, and then see if we can kind of, monopolize what's there and use it for us. So that's something else that I've definitely asked for. And you'll notice that the ones that are in yellow, I also kind of doubled up and asked for from ESSER funds when we were given the opportunity to ask for ESSER funds. So either, hopefully if it doesn't get covered or considered with my general funds, it would be considered with my ESSER funds request, or, vice versa. District level budget for repairs. So I know that a ton of y'all, your auditoriums sometimes are rented out for things like, visiting community members, and they pay kind of a rental fee, but then they use your equipment, and if the equipment is broken or it's just general wear and tear, those rental fees are not necessarily put back into the auditorium that you all need. So because I ask for kind of like a chunk of money each year to pay for like kiln repair for art programs for middle school and high school, I kind of figured I would ask for something similar. So if there's times where you have broken mics, sound system, lighting repairs that are kind of general repairs, that you can reach out to me, and then we would go through our approved vendor that we usually work with, and they would come out and they repair it and I would pay for it. So that's something that I've asked for. So that's something that would not be a burden on your program. And then also something that I've asked for would be a program refresh. So it would be 10 schools per year, and each school would get $2,000, and that money would go towards whatever it is that you need. And so every year it would be another 10 schools. And so I have kind of asked for that also in my ESSER funds. So if they don't consider that through ESSER, then hopefully they'll give it to me at least through my general funds. My goal when I ask for budget money is to not be super crazy extravagant, because I don't want anybody to laugh at me. But at the same time, I also feel that this is definitely needed, especially after kind of not being considered for a very, very, very long time. So I haven't heard back yet from what the approval is for these general funds, and that yay or nay is going to come before those ESSER funds. So we'll kind of see. But I'm really hoping. I think that these are all kind of legitimate needs. And after talking with Terry Connor and a couple of other stakeholders, I think that this was understood. The other thing that I have underneath my ESSER funds is, and I'm working with Ted Hope with music, is that we would be updating the lighting systems for auditoriums. So there are a couple of schools that are kind of already on the refresh list for with referendum money. So any schools that are older than 10 years old and that are not on the list for automatically for refresh with referendum funds, though we were asking for those schools to be considered for lighting system updates for their auditoriums. And that would benefit both music, any kind of performing arts, so, music, dance, and theater. But also, just because if we look at the logistics of that, that's not something that would all happen in 1 year because, goodness bless that vendor that would get requests for every single middle school and high school auditorium at one time. But that's definitely something that we are advocating for as well. So those are things that we're crossing our fingers for, and I think is much needed. Really quick thank you. When I talk about these kind of needs assessments and these surveys, and I know that y'all are busy, when I kind of first stepped in January, I did send out a survey. And I know, like I said, I know everybody's busy and this has been a super crazy year. And I probably had maybe about 10 of our theater teachers that kind of responded to this survey. And some of the questions were, yes, tell me a little bit about yourself, but also like, what are your needs for your programs? What's something that you can kind of, contribute to the general knowledge and as a resource for our theater family here in Hillsborough County. But then also, what else can I personally help you with? And so to those 10 teachers that kind of took that extra time, I really appreciate it. And I used that for my kind of, needs assessment and what it is that I felt needed to be included in Canvas or whatever. I also, sent out kind of in the middle of last semester, anybody that wanted to help with kind of, contributing to writing assessment questions, because all of our assessments had to be revamped, any pretests, midterms, and finals. And we did have a couple of people that kind of reached out and were interested. I know that life happens. And we had like 1 or 2 people that sent stuff in. So the big thing that I want to say, as we kind of venture through the day and we venture through the resources that are currently in Canvas and anything that you don't see in there that you think should be in there, all of that information was based off of anybody that was willing to provide input. So like I said, the change that you need can only be made with your input. So the more that we have you sharing your input and building buy-in, the more that can be built for you. So I'll kind of remind you as we, you share your survey results today to be constructive, but also to consider that, it was asked for your input, your input was asked for, and I only got a little bit back. So when I only get a little bit back, I can only work with the little bit that I get. So I'm kind of hoping that your feedback that you provide today in these surveys are not only constructive, feedback, but, in kind of positive feedback, but also, sharing what your needs are, what you notice in a positive way, and understanding that I'm only one person and I'm doing my best. So Canvas is not new to us in that we were kind of thrown into Canvas last year with e-learning. And so many of you, had to use Canvas to communicate with your students and organize lesson plans for your e-learners and presentation with your e-learners, or even your students that were kind of, sent home with quarantine. However, what we did not have last year was an actual Canvas resource course. And there are some content areas that have this, and there are some that do not. And when we were thrown into Canvas, kind of at the beginning of last year, one of my goals for my art educators was to have kind of like a one-stop shop. When we had first class, we had a ton of junk in there. Some of it was great junk. Some of it was super duper old junk that was not even relevant anymore. And I'm speaking for my art people. And so it kind of took me a really long time to comb through what was in there, and then also build in Canvas these resource courses, and then organize what was there that was still valuable and put it in our course. When I kind of adopted theater and I went into first class, there really wasn't a ton there, and I tried to glean as much as I could. And I was also kind of given limited resources from the previous supervisor. So I really didn't have a ton to work with. So a lot of this was kind of based off of what I felt needs were and what the needs were that were shared from those couple of teachers that kind of did the survey in January. So when we go into our Canvas course today, you're going to notice these, some of these things, okay, that are kind of on your home page. So teaching best practices, these are general teaching best practices. But for a lot of our newbies that are kind of stepping in, this is a great resource, or just even a great reminder for some of our veteran teachers. Event information, archived inspirations. This is like my fancy way of saying old lesson plans. And when I say that they're inspirations, these are not necessarily things that you would take and use cookie cutter, like we find them out in the theater lesson plan ether of the internet, but things that you go, oh, you know what, this is really cool. Let me adapt it and format it and make accommodations for my students and my teaching styles. But there's some stuff there. I know Angela over at Progress Village just opened up her OneDrive for me. She's just lovely. So a lot of that information that is there is based off of her generosity and her graciousness. And so a huge hug to Angela. But if there's anybody else that has lesson plans that would love to share them, please let me know, and we can get those in there. Also, I'm hoping with getting access to Drama Teacher Academy, we can kind of build some of our own lesson plans there based off of their inspirations, and we can build capacity. Canvas resources are noted inside of this Canvas resource course. Advocacy efforts, and what advocacy actually kind of looks like, and the ways that you can use advocacy. A lot of times we think about advocacy as like holding a big sign in a group of people, but different kind of points of view when it comes to advocacy in your programs. Information on exam administration. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. PD and reflective practices. That is where you're going to find that form for your out of district in-service requests. And then equipment, supplies, and budget. So a couple of these things are still under construction because I am one person, and I'm doing the best that I can, and I've kind of had to prioritize my time. But also, as you share your knowledge with me, that the filling up of those different under construction areas can go much faster. All right, so you'll notice that when you do log into our Canvas course, underneath that big tacky PSD Professional Study Day button is we've kind of divided up the curriculum between middle school theater and high school theater. And once you click on your middle school or high school theater, above the top of those general buttons, you're going to kind of go in and notice that there is a button that is assigned to each course that we offer in the district. So each of the middle school courses that we offer and each of the high school courses that we offer. And when you click on these, within each one of these courses, you are going to find a curriculum map that is aligned to the state standards, a button that takes you directly to CPALMs to those standards. So there is no more having to kind of Google CPALMs or whatever it is. Please use this as a direct resource. You have our Hillsborough County Public Schools Theater Scope and Sequence that has been created. That's K-12. A district glossary that has, oh goodness, we add some every single day to make sure that anything that is in an assessment is also in there. But if you want to know what the official definition is that could be used on one of our district assessments, please you go and use that district glossary. Note of any in adoption textbooks titles, and as those become out of adoption, they will phase out. And when we are going to consider new adopted materials, they will be added. And course-specific information from CPALMs. Part of what you guys are going to do today is you're just going to go in there and kind of navigate and explore, what all is in there as a resource. Okay, that's going to be part of your day work, not your homework. But I also have this little bubble over here to the side that this isn't just information for you. Yes, it is kind of helping us organize our curriculum because a lot of teachers are, teaching the same course, but they're teaching them very differently, and both of them could be really good. But we just want to make sure that they're on target. But also, a lot of the feedback that I got from those teachers at the very beginning of the school in January when I sent that survey out was, I don't know what to teach. Like I know that there's standards, but I don't have any kind of guidance to make sure that I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. So that's another reason why these curriculum maps and kind of redoing a lot of the assessments was a priority. But also, this is for administrators to see a lot of the nuances of what we do in our curriculum. The district, to be honest, because there were a total of 5 files that were kind of kept in a drawer for theater, and not much on first class, is because, to be honest, nobody in the district, aside from maybe you guys and maybe a couple of your supportive stakeholders at your school sites, really know what it is that you guys are doing. And that's another reason why budget hasn't been a consideration. Updated assessments, and the fact that almost all of our assessments were only assessing maybe 5 standards, and half of them were, stage directions, is because there wasn't a lot of what it is that you all that are doing and how you are supporting student success. So the organization of this isn't just for you all, but it's also to legitimize to administrators that what you all are doing is important and legitimate. Okay. So about our new resources, one of the big concerns was, if we have curriculum maps, are you going to tell us what it is that we have to teach? Yes and no. So basically, every content area has curriculum maps for every single course that they offer. We have some content areas like math or like language arts that they have calendars, and they have to kind of follow what it is that they need to be doing by this certain time, and doing it in a certain order before a midterm and before a final. There are other districts in the state of Florida, when I sit and I talk with the other theater supervisors, who for the most part are also the music and art and dance supervisors at a lot of these smaller districts. So they're wearing many hats. That everybody in the districts, every acting one class is all doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And we are very creative people, and we also want to instill in our students that level of creativity and creative choice. And you want to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your specific students. So with the curriculum maps, basically what we're doing is we're saying these concepts are what it is that your students need to know by midterms and by finals. But it is up to you and your expertise and your knowledge of your students and your knowledge of your own teaching styles to figure out how you want to share that information with them. And also, part of being a lifelong learner and finding professional development is you understanding and being reflective. You know what, maybe I'm not teaching this the best that it can be. Let me find out kind of some of the better ways to kind of teach this concept. And you use the resources we have on Canvas. You use your colleagues. You take a workshop. You do some kind of research. But I think autonomy, provides creative opportunity for you to work with your students, but also it helps you to be more of a reflective educator and know what it is that you're doing really well because your students are really getting it, and what things that you kind of need to bone up on in order for your students to become more successful. Performance tasks. So when we look at our assessments, there are actually 2 parts to a performance task. There's the multiple choice portion, and then there's the performance task portion, and then you get a scale from the assessments office on how to kind of squish those 2 scores together to make one final exam score. And what I kind of noticed as I stepped into kind of working with theater is that while we have a district multiple choice test, then our performance tasks were kind of left up in the air. And so when we want to assess, number one, the strengths of our courses and our programs in the district, there needs to be some kind of consistency. And so while your performance task is still going to be completely up to you, whether it is research-based, whether it's performance-based, there is going to be a rubric, a district rubric that you will actually use. There's a couple of different rubrics. You get to, just like art, they have a 2D one and they have a 3D one based on what project it is that they're having their students do at the end of first semester and second semester. But for you guys, we're going to have a rubric that's a performance-based rubric, one that is a research-based rubric, and one that is a presentation-based rubric. So that way, as you are assessing your students, there's even across the district, and the projects may be different, there's some kind of consistency when it comes to how you are assessing your students, point-based. So those are available in our Canvas course as well. We have 2 of the rubrics up there. I think we're still wanting to refine the 3rd. So those will be up there soon. And then the last one is just, we want to make sure that we are being intentional about what it is that we do. You all are the experts, and you all are growing experts. We are never going to know everything, because every time we have a different kind of student that walks into our classroom, we are not an expert on that student. So you are never a total expert at what it is that you do. And so while you have knowledge, the person that comes in to observe you or to stop by and see what you're doing may not know or appreciate the nuances of what it is that you are doing and why the things that you're doing are important. You're intentionally going to be teaching this technique before another technique, or you're going to be pushing this one student to try this technique because we know that that's kind of their weakest area. But anybody that walks in and doesn't know any of that information kind of sees, oh, well, you know, that looks really fun. You guys are having fun. And we know that there's a science to something that looks like fun. And so I encourage you that when you're having conversation with those visitors, or if you're having an observation and you're going to be filling out that pre-observation form, or having a post-conference, or having a conversation in the hallway with some of those stakeholders, that you kind of slide in that intentionality of what it is that you're doing, because they don't know if you don't let them know that what you're doing is legitimate. Updates. So when it comes to the co-curricular expectations for the district, last year was really rough. We started out with 0 performances at all, and then there was the mention of the co-curricular plan kind of being considered and re-updated in January and February, and then that was taken into consideration, and it wasn't like full blown. And I have to be really honest, I am recording this on August 1st, Sunday night, 2 days before you guys are going to see this, and things are changing daily. And so while I cannot tell you officially what is going to be out in the co-curricular protocols specifically for theater, because I have not been approached by anyone in the district to contribute to that, that as soon as information is shared, I will share it with you. So I just want you to know that, you know, I have advocated and I have not been approached as of yet, but as information is shared, I promise to share it with you. So I really appreciate your patience on that. All right, so advocacy, how to support your own program. So let's kind of talk about the elephant in the room, and this kind of like unpleasant reality, and what kind of happened in the spring of last year. So the district had to make the decision, partly based on the financial situation that we were in, to kind of really look at units and allocations per school based on student enrollment. So things like core contents, math, language arts, you know, stuff like that, where students have to be enrolled in those courses, while they may have lost one or two language arts teachers at a school because they spread those students out as opposed to kind of condensing them. That was one thing, but for the most part, what happened was administrators were kind of presented with, this is how many units your school is over allocated, and you need to cut this many. And it was the administrator's job to kind of look at student enrollment and where there was a need. And, you know, as those administrators sat at the table, I can tell you that when because I was kind of bouncing in between three rooms for an entire week, there were times where administrators, it was just a heartbreaking struggle, because we have administrators in this district that truly value every aspect, including the visual and performing arts at their schools, and they still had to make some really hard decisions. Different reasons when those administrators were at the table: low interest and low enrollment, period, in some of those courses. And it wasn't just visual and performing arts. It was, other electives. Like I said, it was other surplus core content areas. But low interest and low enrollment, especially for our electives, was one of them. Another one was high priority electives. So there were some electives that were had a higher priority or a higher enrollment than others. And when they had to make the decision, they chose whatever they felt that their student body had more of an interest in. Strategies with teachers that could teach multiple content areas. And, when it comes to art and when it comes to music, that wasn't so much of an issue, but it really got us in theater because, especially because we kind of overlap with music and musical theater. And we have many of our teachers that, teach a couple of courses of theater and language arts, that if it came down to looking at those enrollment formulas, and yes, I could totally have my music teacher that is capable of teaching music also teach the musical theater course, and then let's just spread it on out to regular theater courses because they'll have to learn that too. And that's a huge burden on that educator. But then also, what happens to the theater teacher that's at that school? And then, I want to be as professional as possible, but also very honest. Sometimes there was just no reasoning at all. And it was just a decision that was made. And I can tell you that no decision was super easy. But when we look at those different reasonings of why some of our programs were cut, we can try to, at this point, kind of stay ahead of the game and think of, how do we respond to this? And how do we become more advocates for our program so that way that doesn't need to be an option if there's a decision that needs to be made again. What I will tell you is that when we talk about the squeaky wheel, it's not necessarily somebody that's complaining all the time, but also somebody that they see a lot of. And when they see a lot of what it is that you're doing and you're doing really great, then they look for the things that are the surplus, that are kind of quiet sleepers that nobody's paying attention to, and those are the units next time that they get rid of. So these are just some different kind of suggestions that I know many of you have probably already thought of, but if you haven't, or if you are wanting to make sure that your program is staying as solid as it can, but also that your stakeholders are seeing what it is that you're doing. Just some suggestions. Be present. You don't have to be anyone's best friend, okay? Especially if you are working with an administrator that may not be as supportive of your program as you feel that they should be, okay? But remember that any of those people, those stakeholders that you work with, whether it's your administrators or your faculty and staff, your bookkeeper, the one that helps you, order supplies, or even district level people. Those are all people that grew up with some kind of taste in their mouth for theater. So whether that was, it's not really a big deal. It's not exciting for me, but I respect it. And I think that's important for everybody else. But then we also have those that theater was never a part of their life, and they don't see it being a part of anybody else's life either. And so as part of being an advocate and kind of being like I like to say we are the personification of our content area, that it has to be one of our goals to show them that it is important for students, okay? And that is frustrating at times because we don't want to have to prove ourselves for anything, and people should just get it. And if they don't think that we're awesome and important, then forget them. But we're here for our students too. And if we are in a situation where the people that are making the decisions about our content area don't have a good taste in their mouth when it comes to theater, our goal is to not be best friends with them, but to show them that what it is that we're doing is important for our students. So, make sure that theater is present. Make sure that you, as the personification of theater, is approachable, is flexible. You're a team player. and you're willing to grow, and part of that is, kind of sometimes doing things you don't want to do, but you take them for the team, and you're there to be present. Be present with your curriculum. And by that, I kind of slid this in earlier of, when you're having a conversation, be kind of intentional about sliding in there, how you are including that social emotional aspect with your students. Student testimonial stories are big tuggers on heartstrings. How are you making accommodations for students that need it? What are all these kind of best practices things that you're doing because you are an expert, but other people just see you as, oh, well, you guys are kind of playing around and playing some improv games, or you're teaching kids how to make costumes. Cute. Show them that through conversation, kind of like those magic buzzwords of how what you're doing is significant. And then that last one is a big one, is recruiting. And we have many of you guys that have those kind of bigger and more robust theater programs. You have your superstars and you have your lifers, and you have those students that kind of come in as a freshman, and then you catch them, and then they are signed any possible elective and after school club and weekend opportunities. They are there, and then they grow to be your seniors, and they grow to be kind of like your big your big superstars, your big fish. And then sometimes as we're cultivating those big fish, and then we have this elite program, we don't really think about necessarily still going back and catching all those freshmen for the following year, or even touching base with some of those feeder middle schools that those kiddos may be coming over. So we just want to make sure that, and I'm not saying everybody is this way, but for some of those kind of meatier programs, when we have those big, robust, those superstars, you still want to remember that you still need those kids to catch those kiddos early and for the next round of superstars. Okay. Like I said, I know a lot of you guys already know this stuff. Advocacy is you, and you are theater. And I kind of joke with my art teachers about this, but you are the personification of your content area. So, as you're walking down the hallway, theater is walking down the hallway, and theater doesn't have to have a good day every single day. Okay. And theater is allowed to be annoyed that the copy machine is not working. And theater is allowed to be frustrated that they are being asked to cover somebody else's class because that substitute didn't show up. But for the most part, if we are not, seen as somebody that is approachable or is flexible or can be friendly or, can kind of go with the flow at times, then we could be seen that theater is also difficult, or frustrated all the time. If theater is sitting in the back of the faculty meeting with their arms crossed because nothing in this faculty meeting pertains to us, we've all been there. You know what happens. Then sometimes that's just kind of like a negative vibe that has been given. And then we're working with humans, and a lot of those humans go, ooh. And then they kind of attach it to our content area, and not that, a person that is teaching theater just happens to be having a frustrating day. So just a kind of a different perspective on how you kind of represent your content area. So this is just kind of a reiteration of, what I've previously said. The more that they see, the more that they believe. Be present. Remember that you are kind of representing your program. What I put down here is the more kids get excited, and remember, they grow up to be the voters and the important people who love or hate the arts. They are the people that either have a good taste for theater in their mouth or not. And when we do that, yes, we're catching our students and the students that come to our programs and fall in love, and we fall in love with them. And then, we're a big family because that's what theater is about. But also we want that to spread to the adults that are around us too, because those adults can also be advocates for us. The more kids engage in the arts, they get all those hidden benefits. We know this. Make that obvious for the stakeholders that you're talking with. And the more parents get excited, happy kids mean happy parents. And then those parents are advocates as well. But the last thing is, the more that they see of what it is that you do, and that you are a positive and flexible team member, nobody can deny that you're working hard. So when it comes to time for somebody to sit at the table and make a decision about your content area because they are forced to cut units and allocations, you want their taste in their mouth to be, but I can't get rid of that theater program because that theater program is magic for my students, and the parents are super supportive, and you know, it would be a huge loss. Okay, so communication really quick. So we have been kind of sucked out of first class, whew, thank goodness, and kind of moved into Outlook and Teams. And so these are going to be two, once you kind of get your bearings, some people have kind of caught on already. These are going to be the two ways that communication from the district level is going to kind of come to you. I am not a big fan of mass emails. However, because I am new to you and you are new to me, and we're kind of all, trying to make sure we know where everybody is. Mass emails have come out to me because not everybody right now is on Teams, but you do need to be in our theater ed Teams. And there are a couple different channels that I've created on the sides for more specific announcements or, questions people need to ask or whatever. So you'll notice in there, but it is a professional expectation that you check your communication outlets fairly regularly. And by that, I do not mean 5 times a day. We all know that you get to work at 7:30 with your cup of coffee, and that cup of coffee sits on your desk until 10:30, and then you go and you reheat it, and it lasts, reheated maybe for another hour and a half, and you're lucky to finish that cup of coffee. You're lucky to get to run to use the restroom and do all of your other little to-dos during your planning time or even during your lunchtime. I get it. But if you can kind of weasel into your routine, a little bit of time to kind of check your email or your communication at either the beginning of the day or the end of the day, just because there may be some, great opportunities that are time sensitive. And what you don't want to do is kind of, have that cup of coffee, reheated cup of coffee. It's the end of the day. You're exhausted. You go home, and then you have the cup of coffee, reheated cup of coffee during the day. And then it ends up being 2 weeks, and you've missed some stuff because you haven't checked your email. So, make that a little bit of a routine, just sometime once a day, please. Building district resources with your help. So I had thanked a couple of the teachers that have kind of done my survey and shared that information with me and what their needs are. And that definitely helped with building what we currently have in Canvas. But there's also something else that I really, really need your help with. So I thought, what better than kind of going to you all as experts and building something that should be shared with administrators. So when they do observations for your content area, that they can see specifically what the elements of the rubric look like for theater. So other content areas have these kind of look fors, okay? So when an administrator goes around and they're doing like a formal observation or an informal observation, and they have to kind of, select different rubric components, that they can see what exactly 1A looks like in language arts, okay, or math. But they really don't have that for theater. And usually when we're working with administrators, we kind of work with 3 different kinds of administrators that come into our classrooms. So we have the administrator that says, I don't know what it is you're doing, but it looks great. So you are just going to get all exemplaries because I do not want to humble myself with asking what exactly it is you're doing. And I just also don't have time right now. So you're great. And that also doesn't really help us as educators to grow. Okay. We also have the administrator that goes, I don't know what it is you're doing, but it certainly doesn't look like what it is they're doing in the math classroom. So I need all required actions because this just looks like play. And that doesn't help us either because it frustrates all the legitimacy and of the nuances that we're doing for our content area. Then we also have the educator that goes, I do not know what it is that you're doing, but I just want to learn more. So please, what is it that you did here? And how is that helping your students? Oh my gosh, I love that. We really don't get that administrator that often. And if you have an administrator at your school, please, please, please just give them as much information as possible because they are going to be your biggest advocates. But we want to have this document to provide to them so that way when they come through your classroom, that if you have questions during your post conference, you can point out, no, this is exactly what I'm doing. This is what 2E looks like. All right. So you guys, there's instructions specifically for one of these tasks that you guys are going to do today. I think it may be right after this general session. And you guys are going to break up into 4 groups. There are going to be 2 of these rubrics, and you guys, your 4 groups are going to kind of help fill in the blanks for the 4 different chunks of these rubrics. One rubric is, one of the walkthroughs is what theater looks like for these different areas in a classroom setting. Okay, so we're not always on stage. All right. And then the other one is going to be for the studio setting or the performance area. So when you are assigned to your group A, B, C, or D, you'll be assigned to either the first or second part of one of those 2 different walkthrough forms. And your job is to kind of collaborate with the people that are in your group. And so for the first one, you guys are going to kind of write, what does it look like in theater education when objectives of the lesson are well defined and readily apparent? What does that look like in the theater classroom setting? And I don't care about spelling. I don't care how it's formatted. You're just going to kind of plug in a couple of different bullet points of the different ideas. And then I'm going to kind of take those and iron them out, and then we will have this both, a double-sided one for classroom and one for studio to share with our administrators so they can be more knowledgeable when they come to visit our classrooms. So what's next? So if we're looking at today, you have just finished listening to me babble for what seems like an eternity for this general session. You're going to complete that survey, which the link should be at the bottom of this Canvas page. And you're going to provide responses to the feedback and answer any questions that you might have. Next, you're going to do task 2. And task 2 is theater ed in Canvas. You're going to navigate and explore, do a quick 2 or 3 question survey. What's missing? What do you want to share? What questions do you have? I do want to remind you again that any kind of feedback or criticism that you provide should be constructive. And remember that I alone am the one that has been building all of this, and I'm doing it in the name of advocacy for you all. And so, I'm obviously a very reflective person and very open to feedback, and that's why I'm asking for it. But also just be thoughtful in how you present your concerns. And then you're going to, part of your task 2 is you guys are going to collaborate and discuss. That's where you're going to work on that walkthrough form. Task 3, peer connections. We have a couple of colleagues that have kind of provided resources, and they're going to talk really quick about a couple of different areas. And then also, obviously, within those areas, open it up to kind of general conversation of what's working for you, what's not, what challenges and barriers have you had. Planning ahead. You are going to go into Canvas, find those curriculum maps for the specific courses that you're going to be teaching, and just to get a general idea of what that, what your year is going to look like. And then concluding our day. I have kind of like a rounding up survey with information that I kind of need from you. But obviously, I will make sure to stop by at the end of task 2 for our Q&A with the supervisor and get to see everybody's faces. So this is kind of, you guys are kind of guide and go through the day together. Remember, I have to be technically 16 places at once, amongst some kind of virtual presence with elementary art, and then across the hallway with middle school and high school art as well. So I'm kind of depending on you all to, maybe find a leader or 2 to kind of step up and kind of make sure that we stay paced as you go through the different tasks together. All right, so as we go through the day, please share your feedback constructively, ask questions if things aren't clear, make note of how you can contribute. Okay, from any of us, we are islands at our school. I don't know about you, but I know that I taught at a school where I was by myself. I did not have another art teacher with me. And that is liberating in a way because you don't have to go, what are you going to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? But at the same time, it was also really lonely. And so chances to collaborate and commiserate productively and not feel so alone are few and far between. So hopefully these platforms can give us a chance to kind of feel connected and as a united front. And I just want to, again, put down here, remember that this is a growing platform of resources designed and restructured and reorganized with the ultimate goal of district legitimacy and advocacy of what we know to be an important content area. So I know that when somebody new, like when myself says somebody new stepping in to kind of, taking over theater at the district level, that there was some hesitancy there and there was a little bit of kickback because that's a lot of newness, and I totally understand that. But please know that that offer of my services and support to kind of take you on was all done with love and heart and advocacy in mind, and knowing that what you guys are doing is really important. And because there were kind of structures that were not in place aligned with all the other expectations of all the other content areas are, that you guys were missing out. So that was kind of done, it was done with love because you all deserve to be seen. So please know that, and not that somebody's just kind of coming to take over and rock the boat. So with that said, before we continue on our day, lots of collaboration and sharing today. Please lean on your colleagues, and then I appreciate what you do more than I can say. So thank you again for being so patient, and I will make sure to see you guys within the next couple of hours for our Q&A with the supervisor. So have a lovely day.